Hi, my name is Miles, and welcome to a second look, a video series for DMs of experienced players to give those players a fresh experience, a fresh way to experience player characters, encounters, NPCs, what have you. A way to keep your campaigns fresh and new, and keep your characters off guard, keep your players off guard. We've talked about a number of different um, scenarios and encounters, and today I think we'll discuss Minotaurs. We're all familiar with Minotaurs and the trope of Minotaurs. They are monstrous, huge humanoid creatures with the bodies of men and Minotaurs mixed together. They'll have the heads of Minotaurs with giant horns. They will have either sharp fangs or big square oxen or bull type teeth. Some will have claws, some won't have claws, some will have cloven hoofs, some will have the feet of people, some will have tails, some won't have tails. It'll be an odd mixture. We're all very familiar with the presentation of Minotaurs being bestial and animalistic, such as how they're presented in Greek mythology. We all know the tale of the Minotaur who wandered the labyrinth in Greek mythology, feasting on hapless victims that were lost within. If you're an old character like myself, you're familiar with the presentation of Minotaurs in the series Dragonlance, who were actually somewhat tribal and civilized. They were sailors, if I remember correctly. In all situations where Minotaurs are described in manuals and such, they are said to be really good officers of mixed race monster armies, and that's the tack that we're going to take today. A massive mercenary army known as the Ulder Guth. The Ulder Guth is, as I said, a massive mercenary army which has 20 different units which will wander around whatever realm that you are operating. They being mercenary armies means they are for sale, and that's going to be unusual for a mixed race monster army, as they tend not to be very hireable. They tend to be savage and uncontrollable. It would be hard for a kingdom to hire a mercenary army to raise a city, let's say, and those self-same mercenaries would then kill all the inhabitants and make off with all the valuables and resources in the city, or to hire said army to protect them from some raiding barbarians and think that they're going to keep their own citizens safe. The Elder Guth recognize this and would be known to be extremely reliable in keeping to their word, not overly plundering a city. Some of that would be built into the contract, of course. In the end, they are monster armies, but they understand if they're not going to be hireable if they will plunder whatever cities or whatever situation they're put in, and not do what's in the best interest of those who've hired them. So, the Elder Guth are in my campaigns anyway, broken up into companies, and there are 20 units that will wander around the realm, as I said, either in their territory or where they simply wander to. A company is going to be 660 soldiers. The main body of these armies will be orcs, hobgoblins, and another race that we will go into shortly. But they will be run and officered by Minotaurs. Minotaurs will be a huge number of the Elder Guth. For the breakdown of the numbers of these armies and how they're comprised, for every 10 soldiers, there will be a squad leader. So 10 soldiers will be a squad with an additional leader, making 11. For every 3 squads, they will be commanded by a sergeant. Every 6 squads, or 2 sergeants, will be considered a battalion, and a battalion will be led by a lieutenant. It should be noted that lieutenant is the highest rank that any orc, or especially any hobgoblin, has ever been known to attain. Not saying that no orc could attain higher than lieutenant on their own personal merits, but the lowest rank that a Minotaur will have in the Ulderguth will be lieutenant. Not saying that every single Minotaur will be leading his own battalion or his own squad, but it will prevent Minotaurs from being put under the command of any old random orc or hobgoblin that happens to have attained some level of rank. Each and every Minotaur will be at least the level of lieutenant, whether they have command of a group of soldiers or not. So every 6 squads would be known as a battalion. 10 battalions would be considered one company. A company is going to be led by a captain. So a captain will have 10 lieutenants and all of the sergeants, squad leaders, and squads and battalions that fall into that. The companies, lieutenants, captains will often be, well, mostly be Minotaurs of real renown who've proven themselves in the battlefield or proven themselves as soldiers, leaders, or what have you, but there will be exceptions. There would be the occasional evil human fighter. There will be the occasional other race, which we might as well go into now. The other race would be Centaurs. There would be a particular offshoot of Centaurs who attempted to take over Centaur rule and the Centaur kingdoms, and failed, and thus were banished and exiled. Several hundred Centaurs who ended up falling in line with the Ulderguth, who people, probably half of the Ulderguth mercenary armies, and have their own actual unit in the Ulderguth as well. We'll go into talking about that, but easily half of the Ulderguth have at least a squad, and in some cases up to a battalion. So 60 Centaurs that operate either on their own or operate as cavalry. And I'm sure you can imagine how devastating a battalion, 66 warlike soldier Centaurs could be. But we'll go into those shortly. The various companies are all led by, as I said, a commander. The commander would lead one company or 5-6 companies. It wouldn't matter. All of the Ulderguth are led by one person who is a monstrous, massive Minotaur, who is known as the general. And there is only one general, but he is way out. It will be your campaign. I will leave that to you to create the Ulderguth general. Commanders can be anyone who has met the approval of the general. The general would give this commander permission to create an Ulderguth military army, a mercenary army, and make money as they see fit. Obviously, a good portion of this money goes back to the general. But there are many officers, there are many generals who would not be mercenaries, but they'd be impressive individuals on their own. Please tune in for part 2, and we will talk about some of those individual officers, and we'll talk about the Black Centaurs. Thank you.